Hello. Hello everybody, welcome. I hope everyone is feeling great today. I've had a very productive day already, so this is me trying to wind down at the end of the day by doing a complicated flower demonstration. How is everybody? And while we're talking about how everybody is, can I please have a microphone and sound check? Great. Thank you, husband. Matthew is the moderator in the chat today. Oh, is something wrong?
I'm going to refocus.
Oh, whoopsie.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
All good? Yes, great. So we've got Matthew as one of the moderators today, who is my husband, who is the tech support. And I've also got Labricalus, Rachel, from the YouTube channel Labricalus, who is here to also chat to you guys in the chat, answer any questions that you guys have. Right, just double checking that everything is working. Right, well, I'm guessing everything's working because no one said it's not working. Right, hello and welcome to a Millinery Studio live stream. My name is Ilona, I'm a milliner based in London, and today I'm going to show you my flower tools. Now, I'm not a flower making expert, I'll be very honest. I started with these flower tools right over here, which I'll talk about these more in a second, but let me give you a quick background about my experience with these. I started working with these flower tools about a year and a half ago, and almost, oh, Matthew says there's no music. Uh-oh. There we go, that should be music. Okay, sorry for that. Hopefully that's all good. So back to where I was. So I started using these flower tools about a year and a half ago, and I pretty much almost exclusively used them to make velvet leaves and velvet flowers. So not really very realistic at all, just in fact, let me show you a few examples of a couple of my favorites. I think it's time to switch to the overhead camera view already so that you can see what I'm talking about. There we go. Ciao! I don't understand Italian, but hello, welcome. If we can we stick to English in the chat, if you can, so that we all know what we're talking about. I'll go back to where I was. So, working with the flower tools about a year and a half ago, I pretty much almost exclusively used them to make these kind of velvet leaves. Then on the back, they're backed in some silk dupion, and this is just some silk velvet. But we'll get into more about how I make these later on, but this is how I started off, just very basic. And just these. And then slowly that morphed into me experimenting with some other more exciting shapes. So let me show you this little hat over here. So this one, I call this hat Autumn Aura because it's a little autumnal halo crown, and these are little autumnal looking leaves, autumnal and orange, and they're a little bit more of a complex shape with some cutouts in the leaves, and they're still gathered together, so it's still pretty much the same, but they're backed with the silk velvet as well. Oh, I'll turn the music down. No, I perfectly understand, Rachel. Sometimes music is a little bit too loud. Let's go for this volume. That's just a tiny bit less. There we go. Right, back to the flowers, the leaves. So that's this kind of velvet leaf. And I speak about this hat in a video that I made called Unfinished Hats. So finishing off my unfinished objects. And if you want to learn more about this specific hat, I will leave it in a playlist after the live stream. Some more velvet leaf variations. This one, which is from my Christmas millinery video, where I made these holly velvet leaves and also a hat to go with them as well. And once again, I will leave that in the playlist afterwards. And actually, husband, could you make a list of the videos I'm mentioning? Because otherwise I'll forget what I said I mentioned. just jot it down somewhere in a notebook, and then we can quickly put together a playlist later. So that's these velvet leaves, and they are backed in silk Dupion. So that's how I started off. And then I thought that I should potentially experiment a little bit more and delve more into other fabrics. So not just velvet, but what else can I do with these tools? And the answer to that was silk Dupion. So this is a lily that was made with just 2 tools from the set. So far, for all the flowers I've spoken about, I've only used 2 tools from the flower tool set, and I will show them later. So this is a silk lily, which is in my St. Catherine's Day White Lily video, and it's here on this bandeau as well, which I've called Loopy for Lilies. These are so far using the same technique. The techniques in these, all of these are absolutely identical, even though the fabrics are different and the shapes are different, but the look is different, but the technique is the same. And later on in the video, we can all vote. Maybe I could try my hand at doing one of those YouTube polls, and we can all vote on what you guys might want me to demo. Right, that's those 3. Other things you can do with the flower tools, still the same tool. We'll get onto what tool it is. This kind of leaf, which is now not backed at all, so it's straight on the wire there. And this isn't even a coated wire, this is a plain copper wire. This was me experimenting, trying to do like a vintage looking leaf. And this is a slightly different technique in the preparation of it. As you can see, it's got these crinkle cut edges, so I used pinking shears to cut these out, and then it's still the same tool, but you can see it's not as defined, the lines in it. They're not as defined as in the velvet, and that's why I really love velvet for making leaves and flowers for millinery. So that's one type of tool. Let's talk about what tool that was for all of those flowers that I've already mentioned. This is my set of tools, and if I'm going too fast, or if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the chat and I will answer them, because this is I hope this isn't a one-way conversation. I want this to be a bit more interactive. That's why it's live, so do ask me questions. So these are my flower tool set. I had ordered these from an Etsy shop, and they took, I think, like 2 months to arrive from abroad, so it was a long wait, but it was worth it. So you've got all these balls over here, so they're sized differently, different diameters, and that's for different sized petals. Then you have this special tool over here, which is like a special, I call this like a special, a speciality tool for a very specific flower. This is for chrysanthemums, I think, and I've never tried it. So chrysanthemums are those with all the spiky kind of petals. So I think the way you're supposed to use it is pass it through these holes here. They're different sizes again, but I haven't tried this one. This one is, I think, the only one I haven't tried. So that's a speciality tool. Then there's this one, which is a rat tail hook, which I haven't quite figured out what it's for yet, but it does curve the edges of petals quite nicely, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that later on. Then you've got this one here, which I haven't figured out what it's called. So it's like a little wheel. They're not articulated, so you can't actually spin them like a wheel. It's just a plain kind of leg with a wheel stuck to it and welded to it, and they are made out of brass. But it's not an articulated wheel, it doesn't move. This is just what it looks like, and it has a soft curve around the top over here. I think, again, it's like the rat tail hook, where you'd use it to curve the edges of petals. So like in this rose, which you guys might have seen in my Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you can find me at Millinery, and all the links to that will be in the description box. You might recognize this from a few of my posts this week, and I used this tool on some of these petals to curve them from the underside, but we'll get into that later on. But that's the only use I've managed to figure out for this tool. I'm not quite sure what it's called. I'm not sure what it's for. Rachel asks, so this set came with no instructions about the different tool shapes? Nope, none at all. I think it's because this was the cheapest set I could find, because I didn't want to spend a lot of money, but I did spend, at the time, I think it was about, it was over £100, which at the time felt like a lot of money to me. And I mean, it's still an extortionate amount, but I feel like I got a pretty good deal with all the different various types of things. And I should also say that this is called a European set of flower tools, because you also get Japanese type tools, and they are the same but different. They have different shapes to them. So I think Japanese sets don't tend to have the rat tail, and they tend to have slightly different looking ends. So they don't tend to have wheels. They have like these ends that almost look like a sewing machine foot rather than circles. I don't know. You can look up pictures online, Japanese set or European set. You'll see the differences visually. They can achieve the same things, but I do find that there's not a lot of information on specifically European tools on the internet. Hi Michael, nice to see you again. Are they brass? Yes, they are brass. They are brass. Where did I get to in my tools? So we've done the unnamed round tool. There's also this tool here, which is like a super thin version of this undescript rounded edge wheel. This is a slightly a very much thinner undescript round wheel. And then you've got the last two, which is these two. So they do have a name, but it's not algorithm friendly. So for the duration of the video, I shall be calling these leaf veining tools, but they are actually called the name of the tool that is you'd use to chop your vegetables on a chopping board is the name of these, but that's not algorithm friendly, so I can't say that. So for all intents and purposes in this video, they are called veining tools. So you've got a double veining tool and you've got a single veining tool. So it's a sharper edge than this, but you can't cut anything with it. It's just it's the disc, you can see it comes to a steeper point, whereas this disc is more flat and just plain rounded. So this is the single veining tool and a double veining tool. And they didn't come in a holder like this at all. They just came in I think it was just wrapped in bubble wrap. And so I created this holder by poking holes in it and then labeling all the various sizes just so that I don't get confused. Oh, and I've also got here a little mini sewing machine screwdriver. And the reason I have this is because I did not like the look of the soldering iron that they came with. It looked very dodgy to me. The electrics in it looked very dodgy. I did not feel safe using it, and it also had an EU plug, which is fine, but I wanted to get myself something with a British plug, so I did recently. I went and bought myself a different soldering iron that had a UK plug, but the difference is that this soldering iron has a little screw in it that you need the sewing machine screwdriver to unscrew it. It's just a flathead mini screwdriver. And that's how I would change the nibs on this particular one. What I'll do is, I can't remember off the top of my head how many watts this is, and well, it's the Weller brand, but it's a very specific soldering iron. I'll leave a link to the specific soldering iron information, or I'll leave that information in the description box because I can't quite remember exactly what the technical specification of this is, and that is quite important just for safety, because these things get very hot, and you want to be sure that you are keeping yourself safe and keeping your surroundings safe when using hot soldering irons. If you are looking to buy a set of tools, you can buy them singularly. There's even places in the UK that just sell just the tips, so without the soldering iron, so you source your own soldering iron and you find the tips. The tips have a 5mm leg on them. So this is 5mm, so you need a soldering iron that will fit 5mm tips. Unfortunately, that is not a standard soldering iron. So I have another soldering iron that I use for circuitry and jewelry and things like that. And these tips do not fit into that soldering iron, which is why it's this very specific soldering iron model that you need to get to use them. Blue Raven for him says, I have a Japanese set with the little spoons stuck together. 2 or 3, they are great for lily of the valley and peonies. Yes, so that's exactly what I was talking about, the Japanese sets that are slightly different. So those little spoon things, they are kind of, I think they're similar to the balls, I guess, because you get that kind of, that indentation. If you use the ball, press it in and pull it, you'll get the same kind of effect as with those Japanese spoons, I'm guessing. I've never even seen one of those Japanese sets close up, so I don't know if it's exactly the same, but I bought the European set rather than a Japanese set. Firstly, because I think it's cheaper, I think off the top of my head, and secondly, because I don't really like the stylized look of Japanese flowers. Let me just switch the camera view. So yeah, I don't like the stylized look of Japanese flowers. If you look up Japanese flower making, they're kind of, sometimes they're hyper-realistic, which is incredible, and that is such skilled work, and it's something that I'm not even going to attempt. That's not something that I'm interested in, but if you're interested in it, then Japanese style tools will be more for you. I'm more interested in the kind of mid-century French style of flower making, so I thought if I buy the European tools, I can make mid-century style French type of flowers, which I think this has kind of ended up, oh, I've turned the camera around, this one here, this rose, I think has ended up looking quite mid-century French, kind of a bit fantasy, a bit realistic, not too stylized. We'll get into this a bit more, into this specific shape. I do want to demo something later on. Oh, lots of things from the chat. Let's read the chat for a second. Francoise says, hello from Montreal. Thanks for sharing. Hello. Hello, Montreal. Welcome. And Rachel says, since I work in a studio with several co-workers moving from station to station, we have a bright orange warning sign that we put out anytime we plug in a heat tool like these. While it's heating up or in use or cooling off, this is to keep people from accidentally burning themselves. Yes, that is perfect health and safety practices. If I was working in a studio with other people, that is exactly what I would do. And in fact, when I am working with my flower tools, I work from home, from my living room currently, and I have a tiny kitten who every now and again marauds around and shows her face. And when I'm working with these tools, she is closed out of the room. I close the door, she's not allowed in, just in case. And I always make sure to unplug and replug and all the safety things. Francoise asked, flowers all with fabric or paper? So these ones are all fabric, because I think you'd probably be in danger of burning the paper. I think actually definitely you'd be burning paper, I think, if you tried these. And also paper doesn't have that elasticity unless you're talking about crepe paper, in which case I think if you're making flowers with crepe paper, you can do it just with your hands. I don't think you need tools. And actually I do have a video on how to make flowers without tools, so if you're interested in that, I will also put that in the playlist afterwards. So if you don't know whether you like making flowers or not, you don't know whether to purchase the tools, I suggest trying to make some flowers just with your hands, So you don't spend a lot of money buying tools and then realize that, oh, actually flower making's not for me. So keep your costs down, try it with your hands first. If you like it, great, progress onto tools. If you don't like it, don't worry about it. You could just buy flowers. Abby says, good to know I cannot use my usual iron thingy. Yes, unless your usual soldering iron has a 5mm barrel, so you can just measure it. Let's see, do I have my calipers here? I don't have my calipers, but I do have a ruler. Let's get a ruler and try this. So I'm measuring the inside of the barrel, so not the outer ring, the inner ring. Yep, I'd say that's 5mm. And then obviously these will be 5mm. Yep, 5mm. So check your soldering iron. You can always, if you're not sure, if your soldering iron will work with the tips, you can always buy a set of small tips, or like even one tip. So sometimes you can buy a specialist tool. So this was a specialist tool that's used to make chrysanthemums. I think you can buy these separately from all these other tools. And then you can just, with the one tool, you haven't spent a lot of money, just try it in your soldering iron, and then you can go and buy a full set with a soldering iron, or order a soldering iron to match, or even go into a hardware shop and just test it in various soldering irons if they let you do that, just to see the fit. Hi, Sherry. Don't worry. I mean, I was going to say you haven't missed much, but actually we've spoken about all these tools and I've shown a few hats already. But you can always catch up later. So the stream will be made available to view post live. You can always go back and rewatch the beginning. Oh, just going to take a sip. My throat's getting dry. Hi, Sandra. What's everyone drinking today? Let's take a quick break from the flower tools. I've been talking too fast, I need to catch my breath. I've got pink grapefruit juice today. No more caffeine for me. I was a bit too caffeinated. I had 2 coffees and 3 cups of tea today already, so I need to calm down for the evening. Ah, Shari, great, you didn't miss it. Great, great, great. Lovely. Ah, making coffee. Must be the morning for you. Okay. Just water. Water's very good for you. We should all be drinking more water. Right. I think I've caught my breath. I need to slow down. I'm too excited. I've been so go, go, go with all my flower making the past 2 days. I need to really slow down and take a deep breath. I guess we should, what time is it? Francois says, what time is it for you? For me, it's 4:30 p.m. I'm in London, so we're on Greenwich Mean Time. Yeah, so I've had a very full day. It is the weekend, but I have been working, which maybe I shouldn't be doing. Ooh, Evelyn says, enjoy my cup of Red Bush. Very nice, very nice. Right, let's get back to the tools. Have you guys got any questions so far about any of these tools? Sandra says, the hat you are wearing is beautiful. Thank you very much. It is my, I call it my Loopy for Lilies model. It's got some of the lilies that I've made using the tools. In fact, if I just quickly describe how I made this lily here, there is a video on this lily. It's for the St. Catherine's Day video, which I will leave linked in the playlist. And for this lily, I used the single veining tool and the double veining tool. So I will probably get round to demoing these later on if we don't run out of time. So the double veining tool, I don't know if you can see on the camera. Let's see, can you guys see on the camera? Hopefully you can see. It's got a little ridge inside the 2 plates. Can you see that? I hope you can see it. But what this little ridge does is it fits around a bit of wire. So this is a bit of flower making wire. It's super tiny. I'll go into wires once I've spoken about the tools. It fits right in between those ridges. You guys see that? So that's why you want to use the thin wire, because that's what this tool is designed for. And what this tool does is you can actually see it better on the velvet. This central vein that goes up the leaf, this is where the wire is. So on this particular leaf, it doesn't quite go to the end because it looks nicer that way. And on this lily leaf as well, it stops here, whereas the leaf ends over here. This is what this double vein tool is used for. You heat it up and you run it up your leaf very slowly and carefully so that it's either side of the wire. So that's what this is for. And then you've got the single vein tool, which over here, hopefully it's not too bright and white and you can kind of see the little lines here. That's done with the single tool, exactly the same technique. You just go up, and on these specific ones here, I've just gone up this way. On these leaves, you see there's a bit more of a fanning outwards motion. So you decide how you want to do the leaf. You can look at leaves online, go outside, go into the garden, go to your local park, find a bunch of leaves, and either decide to copy them faithfully or be a little more abstract about it. Think about what is it that makes the leaf look like a leaf, and then you can interpret it in whatever way you want. As I say in all my other videos, there is no right or wrong way. It's whatever works for you. So the same holds true for all of these and the flowers and just you know, everything in millinery really. Like there's conventions and there's traditions, but really it's up to you to discover what you like to do and how you like to use the tools, or how, like in my blocking streams, I usually always say, you know, it's not about how is it meant to be used, how is this block meant to be used, how is this tool meant to be used. Apart from all the safety and health and safety precautions, the design aspect and the use aspect of it is all up to you. Don't be held hostage by your tools, by your blocks. Use them in whatever way you want, as long as it's safe. Yeah, so that's the lily. And if you're interested in the stamens in the middle here, that's all in that video specifically about the lily. We can get into stamens in a bit once we've spoken about the tools as well, because it all kind of feeds into each other. So that's the lily. Hopefully no one's got any more questions about these tools. Oh, actually, one more thing I forgot to mention. Can you see on the edge of this flower, of this leaf? Let me refocus that. There we go. Can you see how on the edge here, it slightly curves. In fact, if I turn it over, I think you can see it a bit better. It slightly curves in. I think that's what this tool is supposed to be for, that indescriptive one that I can't find a name. Maybe we should name this. If anyone has any ideas on what we should name this weird rounded edge wheel tool, like put it in the chat. Like I have no name for this. Like all my other tools I've labeled with at least the size or, you know, what I think they should be called, but this one and the slightly thinner, softer edge one, I have no name for them. So if you have a name, let me know. I'll write it in on my little box. Anyway, this curved up edge, in my video, I did that with the rat tail comb. So just, oops, using that hook part of it along the edge, just to give it that little inward lip. But I think in the future, I'd probably try it with this one. Oh, Rachel, the macaron. Oh, that is perfect, the macaron tool. That is absolutely perfect. And Michael says it kind of looks like a spur, but without spikes. And Francois says, by the way, I watch many times your video on making the extra foam form for the wide brim. Can't wait to try. We had a We had a break this week from the winter, 30 degrees difference. Wowee, that is a big jump. Or 30 degree Celsius or Fahrenheit? Because if that's Celsius, that is quite a mighty jump. So, oh, Shari, yes, discus. It does look like a discus disc as well. Right. Let's yes, I will keep these all in mind, and I will sit on it for a bit, and then I'll let you all know on Instagram in a couple of days what I think I've decided to name it. Francois says, even though we are going back to -20, I got the spring itch. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. It was really lovely, the weather yesterday. I went out and played tennis and it was absolutely glorious. And then today it's been absolutely miserable and raining, and that's just the weather here in the UK. But I've got the spring itch too. And actually, speaking of the spring itch, I treated myself. Let me just get my new tool. I treated myself to another specialist tool. It's the Lily of the Valley tool. It's in this little box, and I thought that we could unbox it maybe later on in the stream. I've been talking now for about 20 minutes already, or longer, however long I've been going. And I think I'm rapidly running out of time if I want to demo you a flower, but I don't know, maybe we'll just stick to chatting about the tools rather than demoing. Oh, Rachel, that is brilliant. So Labricalus says, if you go with the macaron for the thicker one, the thinner one could be a wafer. That is brilliant. That is very, very clever. So I'll unbox the Lily of the Valley in a second. So the lily and the leaves, the velvet, that's this bottom row essentially over here with the veining tools and the macaron and the wafer. So if I move on to these ball tools, so what I would say is that I like to categorize things. So for me in my head, I've kind of gone, okay, these veining tools and the flat macaron style discus tools are for striking shape in the leaves. So when something has like a hard curve, so not a soft curve. So I think of roses being as very soft and fluffy, and then leaves like this, or you know, like this with the jagged edges, as being like the harder type of flower, a more severe flower if you like. So that's what I would use these bottom ones for. But then these top ones, the balls, they make all the fluffy type of flowers. So that's your kind of roses and your peonies and anything that's kind of cupped. So if I show you an example, this rose, which you'll recognize from my Instagram, that's made using, I think, the 2.5 ball and I think it must have been the 1 centimeter. So I could demo the rose. I do have everything ready to demo a rose if you guys would like to see that. The other thing that you can do with those kind of ones, you see these orchids. So these are, I think, oh goodness me, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this. Phalaenopsis? Is that correct? Phalaenopsis orchids? You know, the kind of flatter, rounder ones, rather than the kind of, the ones that kind of look a bit like lilies. These round ones, you can kind of see that I've used the ball tool. You could use the ball tool on these, but these I actually made using a hair curler, which is something that you can do if you don't want to buy the tool set and you want to make flowers with something that is like a flower tool but you can't afford the brass ones. You can get hair curling tools that have a wand that has a rounded edge. So the edge of the wand is essentially like this. In fact, okay, it's time to play the game of ask husband to find something in a cupboard. My darling husband, in the bedroom, there is a drawer at the dressing table on the left top, and it has a bright pink and purple mini hair curler in it. If you could bring that to me, that would be great. Okay, while he's doing that, we'll carry on talking about the ball tools. So with the ball tools, what I haven't spoken about is what you use to press your shape into. So with the ball tools, you need a cushion, a foam pillow, something that's foamy and soft. So this is just a sponge from the kitchen section in any kind of pound shop or food shop. And you see it's very, very, very soft. And that's because when you press in with a ball tool, you want it to indent like this. Perfect. Correct first time. Right, we'll get back to the hair curler in a second. Francois says he's awesome. Yes, my husband is very awesome. Thank you. I'm sure he'll appreciate the love. So with the ball tool, you need something to press into to get that cup shape. So essentially you start with a bit of flat fabric. This is hot. You've got the sponge underneath. You press in and it cups up like that. That's what the ball tools do. The smaller you get with the ball tools, you can kind of get this fluffy effect on the edge of the leaves. So can you see that kind of slight crinkle in there? There's several different ways to do this. The way that I found the other day that was working quite well for me was using a small ball tool on the edge and just pressing kind of like around the perimeter of the petal like this, and it starts to curve up. Rachel says, I did a flower making workshop where we use small sandbags and bean bags. That's a very good idea. I have been thinking about what else can I use to get these kind of shapes, because sometimes this is too soft, sometimes it's too hard. It depends on what you're using. Just, you know, playing around is always good. Looking for other options. And you'll also notice that I've got a piece of fabric here. This is silk satin. It doesn't have to be silk satin. It can be just cotton calico or something, but you need something to cover the sponge. You could sew it up into like a little cushion pouch. I haven't bothered with this one, but I just wrap it around it. And that protects the sponge from melting from the hot tools. So when you press in, it will protect the sponge. Michael asks, so these tools just sort of replace the tip of a soldering iron? Yes and no. So yes, they do go into a soldering iron. So this is my soldering iron, but it has to be a specific soldering iron because not all soldering irons are the same. So I will leave the information for this soldering iron in the description box after the stream. But essentially, long story short, because we have already spoken about this, you need to find a soldering iron that has the same tip diameter that your tips do. So these tips are 5mm. So this soldering iron takes 5mm tips. 5mm soldering irons tend to be quite difficult to find and they are quite expensive. So your standard, like low range, 20-pound soldering iron, which is another soldering iron that I have in the cupboard for other soldering work, for jewelry making and stuff, and circuit boarding, that one is smaller diameter for the tip. So it doesn't fit these tools, which is why I had to get another one of these. So yeah, so yes and no. One of the other questions we've got unanswered. Oh yes, so this is what I was talking about. So if you don't want to buy the flower tools, you can just buy a hair straightener. So can you see how it's curved on the edge, and it's pretty much the same size as the 1.5 centimeter ball. So before I got the set of flower tools, these orchids I made using this this tool, and I do have a tutorial on these orchids, but it's about 5 years old. It's before I really knew what I was doing, but I could leave a link to that, even though it's very old. But I guess maybe if you're interested, if you want to make orchids like this without tools and using something like this. I've also heard people use just the back of spoons. So your standard cooking spoons, you can heat them up on a candle or something, or on a hot plate, and just use them the same way in the pillow. With this, again, same way in the pillow, just press it in. There have been a few questions in the chat. In the US, Clover brand sells a mini iron with removable tips that fits some of these. It's around $30 or less. That's a great budget option. A hardware place like Home Depot might have this kind of iron. Yes, it probably would. So I would recommend, if you do have a hardware shop where you can go and actually look at the soldering irons, take your tips with you, or take a ruler or a tape measure with you, and just go and measure everything, ask around, shop around, find the best deal. You do need to make sure it's the correct wattage and all of that, and sometimes you can even get soldering irons that have like an on-off button on the soldering iron. Those are really fancy, and I couldn't find one in a good price range for myself, which is why I bought this one without it. So when I use this soldering iron, I flick it on and off at the plug point that's right behind me over here. So in the UK, we can switch plugs on and off right at the plug point. So that's what I do. Because you don't want to be working with the soldering iron constantly on, because the tips do get too hot and you can melt and burn the fabric. Right, have I spoken about everything? No. One last thing I want to mention. Oh, and I haven't prepped for this. So I've spoken about the pillow. So with the pillow, you're using, or with the sponge, you're using the ball tools, because that's going to give you that cupping shape, or it's going to give you that kind of crinkle effect on the edge of the leaf with these. If you kind of go like this, it'll give you that crinkle effect. But with the veining tools, you don't want to be using them on such a soft pillow, because that's just going to completely ruin the shape of your leaf. So if I had a leaf like this and I pushed into it, can you see already, if I push into it too much, it completely distorts the shape of the leaf. So you actually want something much harder, a harder surface. So I tend to just do it on my ironing board, which I haven't prepped, stupidly. Can I reach it from behind? Give me 1 second, guys. Aha, I can reach my ironing board. There we go. I say ironing board, it's my ironing pad that I use in the videos. I do have a proper ironing board, but essentially what this is, let's switch video view because it's big. So what this is, it's my, it's a bit of like the felt foam from an ironing board that I folded into 4 layers, and then I've covered that in a folded up old bed sheet. And so it's a hard surface, but it's also soft for if you want to press into it with the double vein or single vein tool. So yes, there we go. Sherry says, do silicone mats work for a flat heat resistant surface? Yes, they do. So that's a great question. So it means I have to move on to the next section, which is how to set up the soldering iron. Let me just quickly do that. So you wouldn't want to use the flower tools on the silicone surface. I wouldn't recommend that, but let me do a quick tidy up of my surface. Oh, actually, before we do that, one last thing I wanted to show you guys, just one last example. These little daisies, they're also made with the ball tools. So this is a slightly different technique. You would cut out your pattern, you get a larger ball tool, and you kind of run it up the inside of the leaf. So up one of these sides, and then you get a slightly smaller ball, flip it over, and just press it in. And that's how you get this kind of effect of the daisy leaves. And this is just 2 types of different fabric. But yes, okay, so move on. I will move on now, because I've shown you lots of things and we've spoken about lots of things, and we should probably have a look at how some of these things work. So let's have a quick intermission while I change things on my desk. So tea break, coffee break, be back in about 2 minutes. Hello everybody, I'm back. I hope everyone took a long enough break there. Or at least I certainly did, because I'm talking too much again. My throat's getting a bit tickly. Right. What shall we move on to next? Has anybody got any more questions about the various different tips before I move on and do the next thing, which will either be a demo of a rose, or we can unbox my Lily of the Valley flower tool and we can try that one. Or we can talk about wires and stamen and flower design. What do you guys want to hear about? Let me know. So you've got 4 options. So option 1, demo the rose. This rose over here. Option 2 is unbox and try out my Lily of the Valley tool, which might include some hilarity of me not actually being able to use it. Option 3 is looking at wires and like flower design. So let me know what you guys think. Rachel says unboxing. You just want to watch me fail again, just like with the black black cape lean from a few streams ago where I just couldn't block it. Marianne says, are you going to do a video on Lily of the Valley? And she's written it in German in the comments, in the chat. Shall I try and pronounce that? Let me see. Can I pronounce that? My Glocken? Did I get that right? Am I going to do a video on Lily of the Valley? Maybe once I feel really comfortable with it. Today the plan would be to unbox it and try it out because it's quite a specific tool. You work with it in a very specific way. I will probably do a video tutorial on this rose at some point later on, and you guys know the way I do my videos. I kind of condense them down into 15 to 20 minutes, whereas if you were to watch me do the actual rose, it would probably take an hour or so, and we might not get all the way through it, but you might want to see it live to see how long it takes. I don't know. The video on this is not a full promise because I don't know if I actually have time in my schedule for it, but there might be one coming. Which option do I feel like doing? I mean, I don't know. I feel like doing everything and nothing at the same time because there is so little time and so much to do. Should we do the unboxing then? Because I feel like there's been some interest in Lily of the Valley and spring is coming up. I mean, Lily of the Valley is more of a kind of late spring, early summer flower, I guess. Now we've got more snowdrops, crocuses, daffodils coming. But you can use the Lily of the Valley tool, from what I understand, to make snowdrops and crocuses. So we can try that. Let's try that. And then we'll go through a few general flower techniques as we go. Right. Let me switch the camera views. Oh, just pop my velvet aside. And Sherry says, could you do a bit of the petal demonstration and the unboxing? Yes, if we have time. That's a very good idea. Just a little bit of each. So let's start with the Lily of the Valley tool. Oh, that's already a preview of one of the next steps there in the shot. So this is what I ordered. I ordered the Lily of the Valley tool from a flower maker in the UK whose name is Anne Tomlin. She's super famous for super realistic flowers that just look incredible. So I already took it out of the package just to make sure that it was all safe and kind of how I expected it. But what I received in the package was one of these Frixion ball pens, which apparently you can draw on the fabric, and then if you iron it, it disappears. So I figured that would be an interesting thing to see live if that works. So we'll give that a go. And then this is the box with the flower tool in it. I think it's really sweet. She's wrapped it in an antique French ribbon, which is this kind of delicate wire with kind of shot or, you know, jacquard leaves, which is absolutely beautiful. I'm going to have to find a use for this on a hat because it's just so stunning. So that'll be the tool. I'm just going to set this lovely flower ribbon aside. Use it later for something. Right, here's the letter that came with it. I think there's some instructions in here, so let's see. Oh, there's a lot of stuff in here. Okay. So, I think Anne Tomlin does use the Japanese style set. I say this because this wire that she sent has a number on it, and that tends to be how Japanese wires come. Oh, let me just refocus that, make sure that that's all in focus. Hopefully that's all in focus. So this is how Japanese wires tend to come. They tend to come in different colors, and the gauge, I think, is that. I'm not really sure. As I say, I'm not really well versed in the world of Japanese flower making. I love to look at it, but I don't know how to do it. So that's I would say this is quite a firm wire. This is much firmer than what I have. So even though it might be the same gauge, the same thickness, I think this is much softer. So the wire that I get in England, and I can tell you what size the English wire is. It is 0.4mm wire. So that's the kind of wire that I use for my flower making. And I buy it in white, and then I can colour it and dye it myself in many other colours. But this is the Japanese wire that Anne Tomlin has sent me. And this says, silk tussar cut into small pieces for pollen. So I've been trying to figure out what this means, and I think what it is it's bits of like silk fluff that you chop up very small into a bowl, and you would use to make like pollen stamens. So like the pollen on the lily of the valley. And I think you use that, and some of the stamens, I think, kind of look better when they're fluffy. I don't know. I've never tried this before. I probably won't be trying this today because that's quite messy. And then this is a bit of fabric. It's already been bonded. We'll talk about fabric bonding in 1 second. A lovely little postcard. So this is crocuses, I think. These aren't lily of the valley. So this is why I think the Lily of the Valley tool can be used for all these other kind of small spring flowers, because that's what this is. Oh, I've missed some things in the chat. Marianne says, did you try tulips? I haven't tried tulips yet, but that sounds like a very interesting flower to try. I'm not sure how I'd use it on a hat, but I think just maybe a bunch of silk fabric tulips would look absolutely stunning as just like a living room decoration. That would be awesome. So maybe that's something that should go on my to-do list. Or Marianne, are you thinking of trying to make tulips? If you are, I'd love to see them. Right, so this is the bit of instructions that came with it. I guess I should read it out. Lily of the Valley tool. Here are a few tips on how I make Lily of the Valley. I've enclosed a piece of prepared silk which is made up of 2 layers of stiffened silk. Okay, so she's stiffened both her silks and then bonded them together. Silk satin and haberdine bonded together with Bondaweb and the Frixion pen. So, silk satin and silk haberdine. So silk haberdine is like a my knowledge of this is, again, that's quite a Japanese fabric to use. I think it's quite a like a cheaper silk. It's very light. It's got a slight sheen to it, and I don't know which side is which. Oh, it's kind of slightly unbonding. I think this stiffer side is the haberdine because it's thinner. So if you stiffen it, I think it kind of sucks up more of the stiffener. Oh, hi Aisha, good evening. Lovely to have you here. We're just talking about flower tools. We're moving on to unboxing a Lily of the Valley flower tool that I ordered. I treated myself. And you can see Anne Tomlin, the lady who I bought this from, the tool, she has already drawn on some flowers for me. Right, so the silk habiti was one side, and then silk satin is the other side. So silk satin is quite a drapey fabric, so this here, which is what I use to cover my sponge, is silk satin. It's very drapey. So I can kind of see why it would be bonded to silk habiti. I don't see why we can't just use a piece of stiffened silk dupion. So, in fact, I have a bit of stiffened silk dupion. Let me just show you what that looks like. It's black, but you can imagine it in white. So this is silk dupion, which normally is... it's also drapey, but it's not as drapey as the silk satin. But you can hear it. You can hear it there. It now rustles a bit like paper because I've stiffened it. And if I was to use this, I wouldn't bother bonding it to another piece of fabric. But I don't know. I'm not an expert. Maybe we should follow Anne's instructions because Anne is the expert. But I'm not always very good at following instructions. So we'll see how we go. We'll see how I feel. So if I was to make fabric for Lily of the Valleys, what I would do is I would stiffen it with something called PVA that's not the PVA you're thinking of. So this is polyvinyl alcohol, which is not the same as polyvinyl acetate. I go on and on about this. I mean, I was going to say I go on and on about this in various videos, but mainly I go on and on about this in my head to myself when I talk to myself, as we all do. But this is polyvinyl alcohol and PVA glue that you can buy in a craft glue, like this kind of white glue, school glue, wood glue. This is polyvinyl acetate. Now, the biggest difference is polyvinyl acetate is not water soluble. So it doesn't dissolve in water, it kind of suspends in water. But polyvinyl alcohol is water soluble and it dissolves into the water and it bonds better. So they're the same, but they're different. They react slightly differently to water. You can use either. If you can't find polyvinyl alcohol, which comes as a powder and you kind of mix it up into a glue yourself, then use just normal white glue, school glue, craft glue. It's the same stuff, essentially, but different. You decide. But I've diluted my polyvinyl alcohol with a ratio of 1 to 2 by volume, so in tablespoons. So 1 tablespoon of PVA to 2 tablespoons of water, and that gives me that kind of thickness that you just saw with the black silk dupion. Whereas this piece of fabric that came with the flower tool, that's quite, like, it's a lot stiffer. It's more like this kind of envelope paper than this kind of standard printer paper, which printer paper tends to be 90 GSM. I don't know what this is. This feels maybe 100, 120 GSM, so it's stiffer. If you're a graphic designer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Right, back to the instructions. You'll need a soldering iron with temperature control. The one I use, so she linked to one that she uses, which isn't the one I use, but you can look it up as well. Flowermakingtools.com apparently. Cut out one of the templates from the sheet included. Keep the rest as spares. Place on the silk and draw around it with the Frixion pen on the habiti side. Ah, she has drawn on the habiti side. Was I right? No, I was completely wrong. It's the habiti side that's light. The other side that's really stiff, that's the silk satin then. Okay, we'll get onto that in a second. Boring instructions. Who wants to read them? Only when you're putting together IKEA furniture. Right, shall we unbox this? How exciting. And ta-da! Right. Oh, there's a tiny little flower here. And a tiny little flower here. And this is the tool itself. We'll get onto that in 1 second. And template and 3 flowers already cut out. So, okay. Well, I guess we pretty much have everything to experiment with already. So shall I set up the soldering iron? Shall we try this? Let's give it a go. Let me just make sure that all the paper is out of the way of the soldering iron, then that everything is safe. So the way I'm going to set up my soldering iron, you won't see it, it will be out of shot just because of the way the camera is set up. But I'll kind of show you my safety setup and then move it across. This is a silicone mat. This is actually a silicone like hair straightener travel set tool thing. So you're supposed to put your hot hair straighteners in here, and then it doesn't matter that they're still hot, or you rest them on top as you're straightening your hair. I bought it specifically to use with the soldering iron tool. So I will set my soldering iron up on that. Take that to one side. This is my soldering iron, which I've already spoken about. It has a kind of triangle pyramid shaped thing that allows it to kind of rest. So there's space under here. If I pass something through, you'll see there's space under there. So that keeps the tip off the table or off the silicone mat. Ideally, I would love to have like a little stand so I could stand it up like this. But this did come with a stand, but it was so flimsy that it fell apart on like the second use. It was just one of these metal sheets that just kind of, you do that and then you put the soldering iron in it and it's supposed to stand upright, and it didn't. So I am looking for soldering iron stands, and if anyone has any suggestions for me on the best soldering stand ever, please leave them for me either in the comments or right now in the chat. I would love to know what you guys think. So then what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to plug this in yet, but it's ready and my plug socket is over there. Let's unbox, let's see this tool. So it's a two-part tool, and it has this little section here that has a well, and it has this, I don't know, should we use technical terms? The male and female part, just like with computing plugs. So you've got the female part, which has a little dip in it, and the male part that has the... Right, are we back? There was too much excitement. YouTube couldn't handle it. Are we back? I think we're back. Okay, something's gone wrong with the internet. Oh, it's very, very bitty. Let's just double check the focus. Okay, that's focusing. It's very slow, husband, the connection for some reason. Or is it all grainy for you on your screen?
Pardon?
Is it all grainy on your screen?
No, it's not.
No? Okay. Right, well, I think we're back. Hopefully you can all see me. I'm very sorry about that. Do you know what, guys? It's been a week of technical issues for me. In case you hadn't realized, today was supposed to be the day I was going to release a massive pillbox hat video, but a few things went wrong for me during the recording, and so I didn't have time to finish the video. So the pillboxes will be hopefully next week, pending more technical issues, and here I am again, plagued by more technical issues. But never mind, husband to the rescue. I think we're back up and running. So let me just do one extra thing just to make sure that we're all good on my end. Just checking the technical equipment. Just checking. Yep, okay, I think I'm all set up again. Okay, great. So where were we? We were talking about the flower tool and how it's used. So here's the female tool, and here's the male tool with the knob on the end. That goes inside there. I'm not sure where I cut out, so if I'm repeating some of this, I'm very sorry about that. But this is the bit that goes inside here, and then it said in the instructions that I need to find a tip with the ball end that's about the same size, and keep this one cold. So you have one that's hot and one that's cold, and the cold one you just take a flower, put it there, poke it in. Oh, you see that didn't go in straight. I guess this is why you want the small tool. Oh, that's still not straight. Let's try again. There we go. That looks a bit straighter to me. So you would pop this one in, and then this would be the heated tool, and you would, I'm guessing, prod that in. That's really difficult to get in. Once there's a bit of fabric in there, it almost kind of doesn't fit. But maybe it's supposed to do that. Can you see that gap there? So I've put the thing in. I should try and use proper words. I've put the bit of fabric in, and I pushed it down with the small ball tool, which will be cold. And then, for all intents and purposes, pretend this is hot. And then when I push down, can you see it doesn't go all the way in? There's a big gap there. Whereas, let me just get that out with some tweezers. Tweezers, essential for flower making, actually. That's something I haven't mentioned. When I don't have the fabric in there and this goes in, it's fine. Maybe it's supposed to do that. I don't know. I mean, it's probably supposed to do that, right? So, I guess let me plug in the iron and try. Now, I don't want to be particularly doing this on the wooden surface. Let me find my ironing board cover again. This is going to look unsightly on the video, but it will be much safer. Get rid of all the bits of paper. Right. Here is the unsightly ironing board cover, but at least it's safe. So, before I move on to trying the tool, actually, let's quickly talk about tweezers, because that's something I missed out. You do need a good set of tweezers for flower making, just to hold general bits, because they're all so tiny. So I've got 3 different types of tweezers here. I've got your standard tweezers, just from like a beauty shop. Just standard flat end tweezers that can grip things. And I use these exclusively in the millinery context, because I don't want to be contaminating like my face with anything that's been anywhere near dyes or glues and things like that. Then I've got this type of tweezer with this bent nib. I don't know what these are called. I found them in a box in my grandparents' house, and I said, can I have them? They look useful. And my granddad said, yes, have them. They are indeed useful. So I've got them, and I do find them useful for picking up general bits if I need to pick up something. And then I've got these, which I ordered a day ago, and they have arrived. These are, they're all stainless steel. And what these are used for is sometimes on the ends of the roses, you want to curve the edge of the fabric. So if you imagine this was my petal, I would grab it like this and just curl it that way and give it a little extra shaping. Anyway, that's tweezers. So I have them on hand just in case I need them to pick things up. Right, I went through my safety setup already. Let me plug my soldering iron in. Oh, actually, before I do that, shall we test that friction pen? Let's test the friction pen. I'm going to turn on my iron instead. So, my iron is on. It's on the hottest setting. Should we just try it on one of these first? So, apparently, with one of these friction pens, the heat should get rid of the lines. If this works, I'm going to be truly amazed. So this is one of the pre-cut flowers that I received in my set that I've unboxed. Just let that iron heat up and take a sip of my grapefruit juice. My iron is hot. So, shall we try? So, you can see, can you guys see the pen marks? Yeah, you can see the pen marks. So, white on white, but you can see the little black edge. Oh my goodness. That was instant. I was expecting to have to like work it in. Wowee. Oh, that is insane. That's amazing. Look at that. No black marks anymore. Amazing. Shall I just try it on the iron? Let's try it on the ironing board. I'm blown away by this. Let's just a scribble. Iron. Oh, the pen doesn't quite write. There we go. Okay, you have to hold it upright like this. So I normally write with pens like this because I'm weird. But oh, it's not even writing on the hot surface. We have to write on a cold surface. Wowie! This is my new favorite thing. When I received the set, I thought, oh my goodness, did she really have to send me a pen? I really didn't want the pen. I would rather have the set been cheaper and I didn't have to pay for the pen, but actually, that's so worth it. So it's a Pilot friction ball pen. So it does say on it, removed by friction, but I guess when you're creating friction, you're creating heat, so that's what removes it. Wow. So amazing. So I'm guessing if you were writing an essay and you needed to like cross out a word, instead of using the friction thing on the end, you could just get some heat from a source and actually, okay, don't try this at home. I'm just going to try it on some paper. Yeah, it works on the paper. Wow. If only I had known that this existed when I was at school writing essays, that would have been a lot easier. Wow. Right, okay, let's all calm down. I'm gonna turn off the iron and turn on the soldering iron now. Right, kitten is out of the room. It is safe. Right, before I turn it on at the plug point, so I've plugged it in, but the plug isn't on, I'm going to unscrew my little screw, get rid of the paper, and put in the Lily of the Valley special tip, and tighten it in. There we go. Nice and hot. And turn it on at the plug. There we go. So the good thing about this particular soldering iron is that when it's on, the little LEDs light up, so you know it's on. With the previous soldering iron I had, you just had no idea without, you know, looking at it, just by looking at it. Anyway, right, popping that onto my silicone mat and making sure that the tip is pointing upwards. You can't quite see that, but it's there, it's safe. Health and safety, the most important thing of all. Very underrated. Everyone needs to keep themselves safe, their surroundings safe. Everybody needs to be kept safe. So always think about the health and safety of the tools you're using. Not just with flour tools, but even with steam irons, steamers, any kind of blocking tools, even pins, hammers, just, you know, you need to be aware of your surroundings and make sure that you're not harming anyone or yourself when using any kind of specialist equipment. Right, I know from experience that if I use these tools with the soldering iron on, it can burn fabric. So I'm going to let it heat up and then I'm actually going to turn it off at the plug point. The way you can avoid these things, you can buy tips. You can buy flour tools that aren't in a soldering iron. A more traditional type of flour tool is just a brass tip like this one, but it's on a wooden handle, so you can't plug it in, it's not electric. And the way that those are heated up is you'd have a hot plate or like an extra stove top, that you can just plug in electrically, and you would rest them on there and they would heat up. And you can use them that way. And those ones are much cheaper to purchase than these tips and soldering irons. But I have used them in the past. I've used someone else's set just to have a go with them. And what I didn't like about those type of tools is that they don't distribute the heat evenly, and it's very difficult to know how hot they are. I think you need a lot more practice with them. It's not just kind of plug in and go like this one is. You really need to get to know the tools in a kind of, you know, like with all vintage old-fashioned tools, you need to get to know how the tool works to use it properly. A bit like a manual car, you listen to the feeling of it. Whoops. Oh, turning that off because it's smoking a little bit. That's worrying while I've been talking. Maybe it's just because it's new. I don't know if you can see the smoke, but I'm just gonna hold it in my hand. Or is it just my soldering iron smoking because I got fabric caught on it the other day? Right, well, okay. Should take my own advice and pay attention to things. Right, well, it's definitely hot because it's smoking. Let me just test it. Is that too hot? It might be. It's definitely too hot. I've let it get too hot now. Right, I'm just going to hold it in my hand to make sure that it cools down. You could have, actually let me prep that. What I have next to me here is a little towel, what are these called? Washcloths. I'm going to dip it in some water and just have it ever so slightly damp. So if I need to cool the tool down. Oh, Rachel says probably burning off some oil that was on the tool from the factory. Yes, that's probably, that's my thinking as well. But just in case, I should have prepped this before turning the tool on, but it's off at the plug point. I'm going to dampen the towel so that if I need to cool the tool, I have a damp towel next to me. Oh, and I've just made the whole surface wet. I should have done this before. You can't, you should never dunk your tools whilst they are super hot into cold water. That will ruin the tools, and obviously no water near the soldering iron, but you will ruin the tools that way. You need to wait for the tools to cool down gradually. So a damp towel will cool the tools down gradually. You just kind of tap it on it without submerging it into water. And if you need to, that will work like that. I mean, this is more damp than I would like it to be. Okay, and my whole surface is damp as well, but never mind. But there we go. So I'm just going to have this next to me just to make sure that, oh, you can't see it there. It's under my, well, we'll keep it there. Okay, right. Wipe my hands down a little bit. So, I have the female tool. I take a flower. I prod it in, try and get it straight. That's pretty straight. And then this, how hot is it? It's hot enough. I'm just gonna cool it down a little bit on the towel. Right. And then I'm going to, oh, will the soldering iron reach? Okay, I'm gonna have to just move this way a little bit. I didn't factor in the wire lengths. Right, let's see. Whoop. Oh, 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 that worked. Oh, that was so fast. That was really fast and very anticlimactic. Oh, husband darling, my front camera is about to run out of battery. But I shall carry on demonstrating with just the overhead camera. I'm just going to do that again because that was so fast. And actually, while the tool was hot, I managed to push it all the way in. So let's just try that again. I'm going to set this aside. It's on the hot mat. I'm going to push that in again. Right. So that's in. And then I'm going to push in the soldering iron. And I don't want to leave it in there for too long because otherwise it will burn. So I'm just going to stab it in and take it straight out. And you'll see the little petal just fall off it. Let's try that again. So I'm pushing it in, push it down, and then take it off. Whoop. There it is. Wasn't that so fast and easy? Oh, it's so pretty. Whoop. Oh, it's so tiny. Oh, it's so tiny and sweet and delicate. Look at that. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, I'm so pleased. What do you guys think? Do you think that worked quite well? I think I need to turn the soldering iron back on because it is actually very cold now. This is where one of those soldering irons where you can like actually see what temperature it is with a dial on it and everything, that would come in very handy. Because the problem with these tiny little flowers is they're very easy to burn. And actually, now that I think about it, if I used a silk dupion without any kind of double backing, so as we said earlier in the instructions with this, it was double, it was 2 fabrics stuck together with bonder web. I guess if I used 1 fabric, it would be so delicate and so thin that it would just instantly burn with the soldering iron. But I'm going to set this one aside. Should we do another one? Let's do another one. I haven't gone over with the iron on this one, on the hot surface. I probably should. The iron might still be warm enough to do this. Let's see. Right. I don't have as many plugs here as I would like. Let me just quickly... Oh, there we go. That's fine. And I might as well do that to the 3rd one that's around here. Perfect. Right. So in case you missed it, let's try that again. Don't think my tool's hot enough yet. Let's give that a few more seconds. While we're doing that, let's get one of these in. So, in case you missed it, should I try and zoom in? Let's see if I can zoom in so you can see it better, guys. That's as far as I can zoom in. And just, hopefully that's all focused. There we go. Right. So I've got my little petal. Place it on top. Whoops. This is very fiddly, but this is actually where, this is where the tweezers would come in handy. So I'm just going to keep the tweezers here, within my reach. Put that in. Whoop. There we go. So all that worry I had earlier about the tool not going in far enough, once it's hot, once the tool's hot, it does go in. So here I go. As Shari says, don't blink or you'll miss it. Ooh, oh dear. Ah, you see, I burnt this one. So it was on it for too long. The tool was too hot. Can you see? Well, you can clearly see I burnt it. But you see, it's a practice thing. That's very, very burnt indeed. This is where I feel like I wish I had like a second right hand, because then I could have a 3rd arm that would just have the tweezers, and then my second right arm would be holding the soldering iron, and then my left hand would just be holding everything in place. That would be useful. But I'm not an alien, so... Or rather, I'm not an octopus, which is a shame. Well, I've got octopuses on my mind because I'm working on an Octopus Hat project, but anyway. Let's try it with the 3rd one. This is the last one I'm going to try, and then maybe I'll demo a few bits of the silk rose. So, what do you guys think? Are you enjoying this? Right, we'll try again with the ball tool. This is the cold ball tool. Pushing it in. That's in. Okay, right. I'm going to have to be much quicker now. Actually, there we go. Just cooling it down on the mat. And, oh, the leaves on this one are slightly... Okay, in I go, out I go, and, oh, there it is. Slightly burnt. Ever so slightly. Oh, I think that's the burnt residue from the previous one. I'll get there eventually. You know, this is literally the 3rd one I've ever made. So, you know, there's going to be some trial and error with this. Never mind. At least they're small, so it's not like I'm wasting an awful lot of fabric. It's just, you know, practicing. Sorry, I keep turning around just to double check that I've turned the soldering iron off, even. So there we go. So that's the special flower tool. Now, oh, this has actually become rather warm, so something to keep in mind. So even though this hasn't been in contact with that for very long, it's actually rather warm, so something to keep in mind. I'm just going to cool it down on the towel before I set it aside. Right. So, just cool that down a little bit, and the way I'm going to change the tip. So I'm on a heat protected surface. In fact, I can do this on here. And I have some pliers handy. So I'm going to undo the little screw. And then I'm going to use the pliers and just place it safely on this mat. And this is why I quite like this mat, because it's got these ridges. It will hold it from rolling around much. And then I need to move everything aside, and once again I wish I had a third arm. Right, just carefully. Right, there we go. So that was the Lily of the Valley tool. You can find them from different places. I'm sure you can order them on Etsy if you look for them. Specialist millinery supply shops, flower making shops. There's a very large flower making community online, and lots of the people involved in that will sell these tools. So that's where you can find these kind of things. But the way I find these things is just I go onto Google and I type in blah 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 flower tool and have a look around, shop around for the best deal. Right. Do you guys want to see my octopus hat that I've been working on before I demo the rose? If you do, I'm gonna have to call my husband over to get it because it's the other side of the room. Should we look at my octopus hat, husband, darling? Just while I tidy away. If you just duck under the camera. The octopus hat is in front of the television. So, yes, in case you guys didn't realise, I'm in my living room, but I've kind of sectioned it off. Yes, that is the octopus hat. It's in 2 parts. Thank you, darling. Okay, let me show you the octopus hat, and then I'll tidy everything away, and then we'll talk about the rose. So, it's in 2 parts. It's on a special hat block that I think looks like an octopus tentacle, and it's going to be one positioned on top of the other, so it looks like this. And I think it looks quite octopusy. And I love the colour. I love the colour. So there we go. I've still got one on the block and one is off the block and wired. So watch out for that. There will be, hopefully, if everything goes to plan, once again, notwithstanding technical issues, if it all goes to plan, there might be a video on this in the next couple of months. Oh, my videos are taking a lot longer to produce these days because they've become a lot more complicated. There's a complicated setup and there's a complicated process. And Francois says, is it soft? So yes, it's soft. It's made out of fur felt. I would have preferred to use wool felt, but I couldn't find wool felt in this specific color and I needed to get this hat done fast. This hat has a fast turnaround time. It needs to be ready in about a week, so I need to get my skates on with this one. Shari says, that reminds me of Ursula in The Little Mermaid, brilliant for a cosplay. Ooh, yes, yes, but that's not what it's for. It's for a very special purpose, which I can't tell you about right now, but I will be able to tell you about hopefully in a couple of months' time. I've been commissioned to do several exciting projects, which I can't talk about now, but I might be able to talk about them in the future if everything goes well and to plan. So that's kind of why I've been working weekends, because there's just suddenly so many projects have come in at the same time that so many commissions. And that's partly also why the videos are delayed, as well as the technical issues. And then at the same time, I've got things going on in my life that also need me to sort them out. So there we go, octopus hat. I've called it Out of the Sea. Right, I'm going to set this to one side and then we'll talk about silk roses. So what do I need for the silk roses? I definitely don't need the Lily of the Valley stuff. Right. if I can get my head around this tool and become a bit more proficient with it, I will potentially make a proper video on it. No promises because I'm currently time poor, but hopefully one day there might be a video of it. Right, that's that almost all out of the way. Right. So, silk rose. So in case you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's this one over here. Let me switch camera modes. Here it is. Is that all focused? Hopefully it's all focused. Oh, I have an itch on my head right under the hat, and the hat is fixed to my head and I can't itch it. That's the worst. Ow. Right. So it's this silk rose over here. So as I've already mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I really like mid-century European French style flower making, which I can't seem to find a lot of literature on other than mentions of all flowers made in the French style. And then there's no explanation on exactly what the French style is. So I'm just going off of what I think looks a little mid-century and looks a little bit more vintage. And to me, through looking at various pictures and online archives, is there's a lot of velvet, and there's also layering of different types of fabric within one flower. So in this particular flower, I've got my stamens in the middle, which are these middle sections, which are these little things over here. We can talk about these in a second. I've got a layer of silk organza, then I've got a layer of silk velvet backed in the silk organza, and we'll talk about what that means in a second. And then I've got a layer of stiffened silk dupion and another layer of stiffened silk dupion, and then that whole thing repeated again with a slightly larger petal shape. So that's how I've built this particular flower. It's not exactly based on a specific rose. So sometimes with modern flower making, people like to recreate a very specific look or a very specific flower, and I don't like that. I personally, for my work, I mean, I love to look at it, but I wouldn't want to make it. It's not really for me. I like this kind of reinterpretation of nature. What can I do slightly differently? How can I add to it? And then the other thing about this flower is I've added it to some velvet leaves that I've already spoken about at the beginning of the stream, and a little rosebud here, and that's all set on a wire, and then the wire is attached to this shape, and this is going to feature in the pillbox video once the technical snaggles get sorted out in that one. So look for that video once it comes out. Hopefully you've got all your notifications turned on and you're subscribed so that you don't miss these videos when they do come out. So there we go, that's this rose. So let's talk about how I've made it. Different fabric types. So I've already mentioned silk organza, silk velvet, and silk dupion. No plastic polyester type fibers, because these tools will melt polyester. So if you want to make flowers out of polyester type things, you can't use hot tools. Or the way that you can make flowers out of polyester ribbon, like polyester organza ribbon, by burning the edges of it, and that crinkles it, but that's a different technique. I'm not interested in that. You won't find information on that here. I'm only interested in natural fibers, and mainly silk, but I also want to try cotton. So this flower is all layered up. Let's start with, oh, I was going to show you guys an organza layer, but I can't see where I've put my organza, so we won't do the organza layer today. Let's do a silk dupion layer, because that's one of the easiest types of fabrics to work with the roses. I'm going to unplug my flower tool, and I'm going to plug in my iron. There we go. And then I'm going to get a bit of my silk. Here is my silk. It's on a coat hanger because it was stiffened and it was drying. So let me tell you a bit about that. So I did already mention that I've stiffened it using polyvinyl alcohol and water in a 1:2 ratio. That's just how I like it. If you want to experiment, find different ratios, have it a bit stiffer, have it a bit softer. Like we saw with the Lily of the Valley, that was super stiff. This one is kind of medium stiff. It crinkles a bit like standard 90 GSM, 80 GSM printer paper. And I've plugged in the iron so that I can iron it. You can see it's a bit crinkled. Sorry, a lot of bending around the camera today. Right, let me just iron that down. Just make it nice and flat. Okay, that's flat enough. Should we let it cool down and then we can draw on it with the special pen? Let's do that. We're gonna play with the special pen again. So I'm going to get rid of this, which is now warm. And I need my flower pattern. Where did that end up? Ah, it's down here. So, there's different ways of putting flowers together. You can do it as singular petals, or you can do it as like, I'm going to term them singular petals and circular petals. So, this would be a singular petal. So you can see it's got a kind of a rounded curved shape. If you've seen my video on handmade flowers without flower tools, this is a very similar petal to the rose petal used there. But it doesn't have that dip in the middle because for the tools you don't really need that. So you can do it as singular petals and you use numbers from the Fibonacci sequence and build up your rows that way, or to save time, and saving time means saving costs, so you don't pass on that extra cost to the customer, you can do it as a circular petals. So I've got 5 petals here, a Fibonacci number, in the round. So this is this exact petal. Oh, it's a bit smaller, but because this is M. So I've sized them. I've got an M and I've got an L. And you know what, guys? If you want the pattern, take a screenshot. I'll leave that there for 1 second. And then let me tell you what size, what diameter the circle is. So on my L rose, I think it's about 12 centimeters. Maybe it's a bit more. It's about 12 centimeters. And on my M, it's about 11.5. So they're it's a slight difference. The way I made these was I just took this petal, drew it out in a circle, and then I'm calling this the XL size. So you can see me drawing it on. And then I put it through a photocopier at 90% less and then another 90% less just to get the multiple sizes. So if I wanted an S size of this, I would just put it through my photocopier and get an S, a small size, and then XS and XXS or XL, XXL, etc. Let me just pop the ruler back. There we go. And let's try it with the... Let's try and draw with the Frixion pen. So in the past, I used to pin, you can see my pin marks here. I used to pin these to the fabric, but that's not great because you don't really want to end up with pin marks. But if you don't have one of these pens and you are going to pin this to the fabric so you can cut it out, I suggest you use entomology pins. So these are specifically branded for sewing, but I want to try and find just entomology pins from, so if you don't know, entomology is that butterfly thing where they pin dead butterflies up. It's a bit dodgy, but great pins. You can use these. Look at how thin and tiny they are. So these are great for silk. So if you're ever working for silk, not just flowers, just silk on hats or silk dresses, silk underwear. I made myself a set of silk pajama trousers. I used these pins through that project. These are great. They don't mark the silk at all. but they do bend really easily, so you've got to be really careful with them. But let's try this. So it does need to be on the bias. So to get the bias, as with everything in millinery, everything needs to be on the bias. If you don't know what the bias is, it's just the 45-degree angle. So you've got a straight line here and a straight line here. You've got your threads running up and down, and the bias is just that 45-degree angle to this. So that's your 90-degree angle there, 45-degree angle here. That's what the bias is. Don't be scared of it. Use it in millinery all the time. So I'm going to just make sure that the middle of my flower is kind of on the bias. Flower making is quite forgiving. This does stop the ends from fraying if it's on the bias though, so it's good practice to do that. Right. I'm going to have to stop talking as I draw because I'm not very good at drawing and talking at the same time, so just give me a few minutes. So as you can see, I'm doing little dots because I'm finding it difficult to get a good straight, a good continuous line with this pen. Maybe that's just the way I hold pens though. I have been told I hold pens in a very funny way. I always want to write like this rather than straight up. I don't know. Oh. Oh gosh, we're about to have more technical issues. Give me 1 second. Oh. There we go. No, everything's fine. Everything's sorted. My laptop was about to turn off because it's an old dinosaur laptop and it likes to every now and again turn itself off, but we're fine. We're fine. While we're here, I'm going to draw on the L size petal as well. Oh, there we go. Towards the end there I did manage. Maybe it was just needing to slightly warm up the end of the pen. Right. To cut it out, you need to use very sharp scissors. So you can use your fabric scissors, but as you can see, they're very big and unwieldy for this thing. So I've got these tiny set of sewing scissors with a sharp point. And that's what I'm going to do. Just cut around. And I'm thinking that the purpose of this flower that I'm going to demo today, I think I might gift it to my mum. It was her birthday a few days ago. And she said to me that for her birthday present, she wanted either a new mulching machine for her garden to process branches off of shrubs and things, or she wanted a flower, a silk flower. And I said, do you know what, Mum? I think I'll make you the silk flower. So this is going to be for my mum, and she loves roses. So, but of course now the surprise is going to be spoiled because she might watch the stream and know that she's getting a rose. But oh well, never mind. So I'm trying to cut kind of inside the lines, just because that's just in case the pen doesn't come off, even though we know the pen will come off. But just in case, I'm still trying to cut inside the lines. And you can always draw it on a pencil, and then definitely you need to cut inside the lines. Oh, it's getting a bit fiddly. Oh, cut off that big bit. We'll be here for ages if I cut out the second one, so I'm going to set the second one aside and cut it out later. But I will show you how to use the ball flower tools on this type of petal to make a rose. And then I think it'll be time to end the stream. So we've been going now for almost 2 hours. And I'm very sorry about the technical issues earlier. Unforeseen. Hopefully we're still up and running and I'm not just talking into the void with no one there. My concentration is very deep right now, trying to get good cutting lines. And as usual with cutting any kind of fabric, I'm trying to not let the tips of my scissors meet and snip. I think I've spoken about that in some previous videos and in previous streams as well. But here is the flower. Let me get my ironing board back out. So let's remind ourselves, this is stiffened silk dupion. So it's not backed with anything, it's a single layer, it's quite stiff. There's obviously many different ways of doing these kind of flowers. You can back your fabrics with Bonder web, so with something. So when you're working with velvet, you're going to want to back that with some with just a backing fabric and Bonder web in between. Right, okay. That's nice and warm, and as you can see, the pencil lines disappeared. It's magical. So, with the rose, the way the petals are structured is you will need to tool the inside, the middle, and you'll need to tool the middle of the ball, the middle of each petal, and then you'll also need to tool the edge to make it have that kind of crinkly shape. There's multiple different ways of doing this. So it's recommended that you start by working on the edge of the leaf and then towards the middle. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show you different ways of curling the edges. You can try it with your hands like this. You can just roll it between your fingers. I find that super fiddly and it doesn't always work. And sometimes you can cause the fabric to fray doing it with your fingers. So I'm not even going to attempt that, but you can try it, see how you like it. It works really well on silk organza. Oh, you guys probably can't see that too well because of the white. There we go. How about like that? So just with my fingers, curling the end like that. That works better on silk organza because silk organza won't fray as much as these type of fabrics. Oops, didn't turn the iron off. There we go. That's off now. The other way to curl the edges is what these tweezers are used for. So these are the flat tip tweezers. So you'd heat up the tweezers or you'd heat up the fabric and then you just grab the end and do that and just kind of heat it a bit. You can see that's already curling quite nicely under. These aren't heated, so it's not going to work too well. Whoops. See, it's these bits are the ones that I'm not too good at. Yeah, no, that's not happening. That's just going to fray the end. So I'm not good at that. One thing I discovered the way that I like to do it is with the smaller ball tool. So I'm just going to make sure that my sponge, this is a normal like car wash sponge. So a soft sponge is there, and on the whatever I decide is the back of the petal, I'm going to decide that actually this is the back of the petal. I am going to get a relatively small ball tool. So out of all my tools, let's see, maybe the 1 centimeter one? No, a smaller one. Let's get a small one. The 8mm one. Yeah, so what I'm looking for when I'm choosing the size is when I press in like that, can you see that little curve that's happened there? That little crinkle? That's what I'm looking to get. So if I go any smaller with the 5mm one, I'm gonna get more crinkle. It's up to you what you want. If you want more crinkle, go for the smaller size. If you want less crinkle, you can go for the larger size, like that. But I want a medium amount of crinkle, so I'm going to go for the 8mm ball tip here. So let me pop that in. Wherever my, oh dear, where's it? I appear to have, oh no, it's over here. For a second there I thought I'd misplaced my little, what's it called? Screwdriver. There we go, that's in, nice and tight. Plugging that in, turning it on. Now the smaller balls will heat up much faster than the bigger ones. So there we go, that's heating up. That'll heat up super fast and I'm going to want to turn it off. Waiting for it to heat up. And so I've got my cushion, my sponge cushion, whatever you want to call it, sandbag, beanbag, covered in some fabric, as long as it's natural fabric. And I've got a damp towel here, just in case I need to cool the tool off. And we're working on the outside of the petal at the very edges first. Needs to heat up a little bit more. All this waiting. You see, when it's not an edited video, you get to see all the pauses of me just waiting for the tools to heat up or waiting for the tools to heat down. There we go, that feels hot enough to me. Turning it off at the plug, and I'm going to hold my soldering iron kind of like this, and hopefully you can see that on screen, and then I'm just going to very gently just start pushing it. And as I push it, can you see that's already curving upwards? And as I work my way around, can you see it's getting that little crinkle? That little crinkle there. And if I wanted to give it more crinkles, I can just kind of stab at it. There we go, working my way around. So that's curving up like that. Maybe a little more of a curve there in the middle. So the more I stab it in, the more it's going to crinkle. You guys see that okay with the white? Maybe I should have done it in a different color. I'm going to start on the next petal. And you can get different effects. So if you wanted to, you could tool literally just the tip, like this, or you could tool all the way around. I'm kind of tooling from midway up the petal, just making it to crinkle. And the beauty of this is that every single petal is going to look different, and that's what you want. I think that's what makes the flowers look really fluffy, because if they all looked the same, they'd look a bit too factory made. And I think it's much nicer if they are all different. There we go. That curving action is what gets that crinkle edge in the roses, which I think is really lovely. It's cooled down a bit too much. Shari says, white roses have a great deal of meaning. What meaning is that? I don't know about the meaning of behind the white roses. Can you tell us a bit about that, Shari? That sounds fascinating. With the small tool, I'm not jabbing it all the way down. You'll see with the bigger tools, I'll start to really jab it down. But with the small one, I'm really controlling that amount of pressure that I'm putting onto it. And you'll find that the ends start fraying, and I think that's okay. So Shari says, a singular white rose represents a loyal and undying love. There is that whole Victorian, there's a Victorian thing, isn't there? The language of flowers or something? When they ascribed different meaning to different flowers, and you could send your love or you can send anyone a bouquet of flowers, and you'd have to decipher it and know what it means. It's an interesting look on the world. You see how that's crinkled completely differently, so every single petal looks different. I mean, this one's my favourite. This is my favourite type of crinkle. All the rest of them aren't exactly the best execution, but it's fine. It'll do. So I'm just going to jab it a little bit to get a little bit extra crinkle. Don't want to leave it on there for too long. Oh, I think it's starting to burn a little bit, so I'm going to turn the tool off. And Francoise says this is a perfect Valentine's gift for you. Right. Oh, do you know what, guys? I forgot why I had the towel here. So you see, this is why I say I'm not the best expert in this. I am a bit of a novice, and I kind of dabble in it. But what I should have done was actually press this in the damp towel for just a little bit, so that it's slightly damp, because apparently it tools better when it's damp. I forgot to do that. Never mind. Right. While the flower, so yeah, don't be like me. Do the right things. But if I do ever get around to making a video about this, don't worry, it will be thoroughly researched and a lot more on point than the loosey-goosey live stream. I'm going to replace the tip now. That was an 8mm tip, which has become very, very hot. So actually I'm going to take it off now, and then I'm going to talk about the next tip. So just for safety, using my pliers to take it out and pop it on the heat-proof mat. And the next ball tip that I'm going to use is going to be one where I turn the flower over and tool in this section of the petal. So rather counterintuitive, you'll have to see once I've tooled it where the bulgy bit goes. Let's see, is this one too big? Yeah, okay, so for the, I think I'm working on the medium size, or am I working on the large? Which one did I cut out? I cut out the large one, I think. So if you're using my pattern, for the large petal, I'm using the 2.5cm ball tip. That goes in. The bigger the tip, the more heavy it is. There it goes. And turning that on. So this is going to take a lot longer to heat up than the small tip. So while that's heating up, let's have a look at what you guys have been chatting about. I can see a lot of things about flower bouquets. Shari says, yes, I dabble in the language of flowers. I'm quite the romantic for it. That's so sweet. I'm guessing you've got the book then that I'm talking about, where there was the Victorian manual that was handed around. Then Shari also says, a full bouquet represents purity, innocence, youthfulness, and loyalty. That's a lot of things in one. I think the St. Catherine's Day white lily is supposed to essentially represent pretty much the same things. Maybe it's just the colour more than the flower. Yeah, I'm not an expert. Shari, you're the flower messages expert. I'm just babbling along while I wait for the tools to heat up. That's still very cold. What did you guys think of the Lily of the Valley tool? Did you like it? Do you know, while that's heating up, I might as well, just while I'm here, cut out the other one. Just to have it ready for assembling the flower. Ooh. Sherry says, I think the Lily of the Valley tool is marvellous, so easy. The tiny flowers are so delicate. Yes, they are rather sweet, aren't they? And Francoise says, maybe while you wait, dampen the flower. Well, you see, the problem with that is that I've already curved the edges. So if I dampen it now, it's going to lose the curl off the edges. But actually, what I can do is maybe just dab with the towel a little bit. Let's do that. That's thank you, Francoise, for jogging my brain there. Maybe I can just dab into the middle a bit with the towel, just so that it's ever so slightly just avoiding the edges. That seems to have worked. Oh yeah, that's ever so slightly. You don't want it sopping wet. There we go. That's ever so slightly damp. And I think, oh yeah. So I know when it's hot because you guys won't be able to hear this, but I can hear a sizzle. When I touch it, I can, actually maybe you guys can hear it. Okay. There's a sizzle there on that towel. So that's how I know it's definitely hot enough. And white fabrics seem to be easier to burn than non-white fabrics. So I'm just going to tool this and then I'll talk about what I'm doing. So just watch for now. So that was the pass into the petals, and I'll explain what happened there in a second. And just while my tool is hot and this is damp, the next step is to go right into the center. So holding it kind of like this so you can see, and then right into the center and tool around like this. And the more you press in, the more cupped it will be. Right, let me turn the tool off and talk you through about what just happened. Oh, it is already off, perfect, right. Let's talk about what just happened there. So you can see it went from being this to this. I'm going to give you guys a heads up that if you have any questions, type them in the chat now, because I'm going to wrap up as soon as I talk you through what just happened. So any questions, pop them in the chat now. So this has gone from flat to this kind of cupped shape. How did that happen? We had our bit of paper and we curved the edges on the back side with the, what number tool was it? The 8mm tool on the L size flower. So here's the L size flower. We used the 8mm ball tool to crinkle the edges by ever so gently pressing it in and taking it around the edge. Then we turned the flower over and we used the 2.5cm tool to tool this bit here. Let me draw it on with the pen. So the motion was This is the center bit of the tool. That's the center. We tooled on the other side, the edges with the ball tool over here. Those edges. And the motion was like this. This kind of motion. That's the motion I was following. Then on the other side, so we've now got this edge bent backwards. I took the 2.5 centimeter tool, gently press it in here, so off center, and push it outwards, applying pressure into this section of the ball. So not all the way out to the edges, just this section here. And then, if you noticed, I was using my left hand. I'm right-handed, so if you're the opposite, obviously switch the hands. I was using my left hand to hold the cushion to be able to crinkle it from the other side. So this is the left hand motion, squeezing the pillow around the ball. So if I take one of the colder tools, it's not just this action. It's two hands and you push the ball into the cushion sponge, and your hand is protected by the sponge. So just be very careful with your fingers around all of this, because obviously the tools are very hot and you can burn yourself very easily. So just make sure that the sponge is there for your protection and obviously for the shaping. So you're pushing into there, and you can kind of rotate it a little bit if you want. You can do this kind of motion, it doesn't matter, but you're looking to get that bulb shape. This is the bulb shape. You're looking to get that in this section over here. So not right at the top and not right in the middle, kind of just in that middle section of the petal. Then we did that on the other side. So you move in and move out, here and out and press. So glide, press in, glide, press in. And you'll notice that the leaves start to overlap, and that's exactly what you want. And you'll notice that some of the crinkling effect in the edges will become a lot more pronounced and will cause more creases, and that's exactly what you want. And it will all look different on every single petal. And then at the end there, just to give it some extra cupping motion, you get your tool and you would, with the ball tip, press right into the center and take it around like this, in this kind of motion. So with the pen, it's kind of like this, like a little spiral. And there you go. Then you end up with one petal, or one layer of petals. So there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed that demonstration. Has anybody got any questions? Just, I know there's a bit of a delay. There's about a 15-second delay, so I'll just give you guys some time for questions. Francois says, fantastic fun morning with you all. Thank you both again for sharing. Very inspiring. One day I'll make some and I'll show you. Wonderful. I look forward to seeing those. Sandra says, amazing. Thank you very much, Sandra. Just briefly start tidying up, making sure all my things, let me just remove the ball tip here while I wait for a few more seconds if there's any more questions. And obviously I am available to answer your questions in the video comments, but I also have a very exciting announcement. Whoops. I'll just put this away and then I'll make my exciting announcement and then we'll say our goodbyes. So my exciting announcement is that I am launching a Patreon page. So don't worry, there will still be free to view YouTube videos, obviously. I am a big believer in freedom of information. So, and a free information and education. So I will be still making free to view YouTube videos, but if you would like some extra advice, some extra tips, then I will be answering all of those questions through my Patreon page. There are going to be 2 tiers. There will be information following this on on the 2 tiers. In my next video, whenever that video comes out, that's where all the information about the 2 bands of the Patreon will be. But essentially, there will be some extra bits about the videos. I'm working on some exciting courses coming up this year that I am planning right now. I'm just writing the curriculum. You can get 10% off of those courses through the Patreon, although the percentage off is subject to change. I just have to run the numbers a few times. But yeah, so exciting. Shari says, thank you. I'm going to try my hand at this and put flowers on Alice bands. Great, that's a great idea. I'm just being handed a kitten. The flower tools are off, so it's safe. There she is. Oh, hello, my darling. Okay, kitten. So, and Glynis says, thank you. If your hat is going to be worn outdoors, will they lose their shape if they get rained on? That is a great question. The answer is yes, definitely. So what I tend to say to clients and to students is that ladies' hats do not do well in the rain. Some men's hats will, so you can coat hats in chemical stiffeners that will make them waterproof, but they inherently are not waterproof objects of clothing. And in fact, my husband had a like a fedora trilby style hat. It's kind of between the two, and he wore that out in the rain a lot, and it eventually started to lose its color and the brim started to lose its shape. So the hats do tend to lose their shape, as will the silk flowers. And the other thing to think about with silk flowers, not only will they lose their shape, but it's also possible that they will get watermarks and water damage on them. Yes, hello, my darling. Kitten cam. This is Drusilla. This is lovely Drusilla. Okay, guys. Well, I think that just about does it for questions and for the live stream. Thank you so much for joining me. Hello, Drusilla. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. Thank you for watching. As usual, all the links to other people in the millinery community will be in the description box below, and you can follow them. Rachel from La Bricaloose, who has been one of the admins in the chat. Thank you so much, Rachel. You can find her details down below and go and watch some of her videos. They're amazing. Sorry, I'm being blown away by the cuteness of my little kitten. Thank you so much for watching. It's been lovely to have you here on the other end of the internet. Thank you for bearing with me with my technical issues. I hope you've learned something new today. I've learnt new things from today from you guys. I love having you guys there in the chat. I love learning new things myself, and I love teaching you guys what I know and my interpretation of things. And I hope you can join me next time. So see you next week, either with another live stream or a video. Who knows? We live in a crazy world. So thank you very much. Bye.